Back in good old 2020, I started making videos for this channel. A lot of them are now unlisted as they suck, to put it lightly, but I left one public, my favorite leaks. This video is bad. Failure. It's a long video that's too short for its own good and feels unfinished because, well, it is. During editing, I cut a lot of stuff out because I didn't feel like editing a 15 to 30 minute video at the time, so it ended up being under 10 minutes, with only 2 leaks being talked about. Since the video's release, I've not liked it that much. So today I've decided to redo it in a multi-part series. So in this part, I'll be talking about video game leaks. So let's go. When I hear the word leak, the first thing that comes to mind is the Half-Life 2 leak of 2003. Basically, some German guy hacked into Valve servers and downloaded a decent chunk of Half-Life 2's source code and assets before leaking it in the fall of 2003. This led to the game being pushed back 2004 and the hacker getting 2 years of probation. Damn, maybe all the hackers should move to Germany then. If you were to play the OG leak without any of the community's patches or fixes, you'd be greeted by error and untextured hell. This is due to a mix of things being unfinished and lots of missing files. Thankfully, fans have restored or recreated many of these assets, so nowadays you can kind of play the beta. Ignoring all that fucking jank though. As this is the source code, a lot of unseen stuff in the final game is present, like a shit ton of maps. In total, there's about 1,300 maps. You got one for everyone. You got 19/2000 Golden Source era maps before the Source engine. You got maps made for E3, including the ones that weren't shown off, and lots of test maps. I'm personally a big fan of the old City 17 maps like these two, meant for E3 2002, where the game was supposed to be shown off but wasn't. They give off similar but different vibes of the final game that I just can't find the words to describe, but they're just cool. There's also some weird ass test maps, like my personal favorite, Zombie Boxing. Look at them go. On another note, there's weapons upon weapons. Most are kind of redundant, but there's some really cool combine stuff, like the Cremator's flamethrower thing. It's overpowered but pretty fucking epic. The leak consisted mostly of Half-Life 2 stuff, but there's also some other Valve stuff included. If you wanted to play the worst version of Half-Life, look no further than the Half-Life Source Alpha. It's somehow worse than the final version, and that's a fucking accomplishment, folks. If that's not your cup of tea, then may I interest you in the CS Source Pre-Alpha? It features such things as missing textures, weird skyboxes that will hurt your fucking eyes, and broken bots that'll make you question why you even play this at all. But that is all child's play compared to the last game I want to mention, Team Fortress 2, or should I say 2 models and a bunch of code. As you probably know by now, Team Fortress 2 spent 9 years in development before coming out. At the time of the leak, it was in its invasion era, where it was more sci-fi and arguably Half-Life 2 inspired. The concept art looks cool, but as I said previously, the only things in this leak are 2 models and the raw code. Everything else is missing. Apparently the game is technically playable, but since there's no assets, you really can't play the game without the help of mods. There's been a few attempts to recreate the game, and by the looks of it, it seems almost completely different. Basically, both teams need to collect resources to accomplish the map's goal. You get resources by killing people or doing whatever the map wants you to do. Since so much is missing, documentation for this beta is really limited, so sorry if I got a lot of stuff wrong. Eventually though, this version of TF2 was scrapped in favor of the version we all know and probably hate nowadays. Like come on Valve, it's been like 3 years. Damn. In the end, Half-Life 2 would later release in 2004 and become one of the most praised games of all time. Have you guys ever seen those old CGI trailers for games? You know, the type that look way better than the actual game? Well, what if you saw one of those, but the game never released. Well, then StarCraft Ghost is that game. This stealth action shooter, based on the RTS series, was set to release in 2003, then 2005, then 2006, then 20XX. Ghost was one of the most elusive pieces of vaporware, aka software that never releases despite never being officially cancelled, up until 2014, when the game was officially cancelled, 12 years after its reveal, I might add. Basically, all you gotta know is development hell, development reboots, blah blah blah. Just watch these two videos for context. As an early build from 2003 was leaked in 2020. This Xbox build has 6 levels and seems to be meant for testing, maybe? You can only play the game on dev kits, as retail models apparently crash at the first level or something like that. As I don't have an original Xbox dev kit lying around, I can't say if it's fun or not, but it looks perfectly playable from the footage I've been able to find. Probably would have been a fun game back in the day. Another thing I should mention is that when this was leaked, Blizzard, the owners of this game, was going through one of their yearly out-of-season April Fool's jokes, where they sold a bad, unfinished Warcraft game for money. Dang, remember when that was the biggest problem they had, huh? If the Half-Life 2 leak was a CD, Nintendo Gigaleak is a fucking Blu-ray. Or HD DVD if you're living in 2006, yeah. The story goes that prior to April 2018, some dude hacked into Nintendo servers Half-Life 2 style and got 2 gigs of stuff. Oh wait, I read that wrong. 2 terabytes of stuff. That's fucking huge if you couldn't tell. The hacker got arrested soon after and was given a sentence of no internet access. I'ma just let you think about that for a moment. But don't fret, as Mr. Hackerman had given some of the data to his hacker friends, who decided to pull a SpongeBob Season 9 and release the fraction of the data they had in small chunks. The joke here is that SpongeBob Season 9 premiered in 2012 and ended in 2017. What show airs a fucking premiere 5 fucking years before the season finale? Like, holy shit, Viacom. These small chunks will be released between 2018 and 21 on the internet's own dumpster fire, 4chan. In total, there's around 20 gigs of stuff. There's thought to be about 20 gigs of stuff, which is laughable in comparison to the 2 terabytes. What isn't laughable though is the contents of these files. The first thing leaked all the way back in 2018 was the Space World 1997 build of Pokemon Gold and Silver. It is almost unrecognizable to the final game with massive changes all over. Different trainers, a different map, and tons upon tons of different Pokemon. That just scratched the surface, by the way, as I could dedicate an entire video to just this one leak. But I got the others to talk about, so let's move on. After much more Pokemon stuff leaks, May 2020 rolls around and we're greeted by the first, as I've been able to find, non-Pokemon leaks. Unsorted.7zip includes content relating to the Wii and IQ player. This included development stuff like source code, SDKs, and documentation around the hardware and OS. I'm probably confusing this with a later leak, but I think there were early concepts for the Wiimote itself in the leaks, and oh boy do these look fucking weird. Imagine going to E3 and seeing either Reggie or Wada pull this out of their sleeve or pocket and be like, yep, this is the new controller. By the console. There was also porn in the files. I think that speaks for itself. The IQ stuff is less interesting, but keep in the back of your mind for later. Throughout the month, more console-related leaks happen, with source code being leaked, the title key generation algorithm for the Nintendo Shops leaks on the 29th, so you can like pirate shit. I don't know anything about that, so don't take my word on that one. Skip ahead to July though, and this is the part where shit hits the fan for real, as a post is made on the Pokemon board of 4chan, which contains links. These links include files, which contain a master collection of every NES and Famicom game. Sorry Europe, there's none for you, so... Source code and files for the unreleased IQ net card, and most importantly of all, multiple prototypes for SNES games. The most widely known prototype is Super Donkey. Basically, it's an early version of Yoshi's Island before Yoshi was in his island. God, I fucking hate this shit. It features this guy, who was once Mario. He doesn't have a name, but he can climb and he can fly. This guy would have fucked if it wasn't replaced by a green dinosaur, of course. Speaking of Yoshi's Island, there's a prototype of it too. Post Super Donkey. It's almost complete in the terms of game length, but there's a lot of changes. Look at how eggs work, for example. You get them by jumping on enemies, not by tonguing them. Throwing them is weird too, as they're thrown more realistically. It's hard to describe, but they seem to have more weight to them. The game is also harder overall from what I've heard. Moving on to Super Mario World, it has some really interesting stuff. Look at this wing power-up, for example. It looks like it's been ripped straight from old fan animation, but it's real and it's pretty fucking cool. What isn't cool though is this animation of Mario beating the shit out of a Velociraptor style Yoshi. I know he does this in the final game, but God, is this more brutal. Hope to see this guy in prison by next month. The following day, bbgames.7zip is released to the world, featuring the source code to Mario 64 and Ocarina of Time, plus a few others from the N64. The big thing that everyone talked about was Luigi in Mario 64. He was found, get this, 24 years and 1 month after its release. Let that sink in. Basically, his model was pieced together like a Frankenstein's monster, and then boom, it was Real 2401, baby. If I remember correctly, someone tried to pass off old voice lines from Super Mario Advance coming from the leak, but that was just a hoax or something like that. There's some other stuff I could have mentioned, but Luigi easily overshadows everything else, not just including the Mario 64 stuff. As for Ocarina of Time, sweet baby Jesus Christ Supermarket, there's a lot of stuff. I could talk about the beta dungeons, the unused enemies, this unfinished compass thing. Well, I could have talked about all that and more, but I want to share what I was thinking while all this was going down. Back like 10 years ago, maybe even 11 now, fuck, I'm getting old. I remember watching videos about the Ocarina of Time beta with these really low quality magazine screenshots and VHS recordings. For a long time, people thought that these were all we were gonna get. So I find it just so surreal that I can now play through the same fucking dungeon as like some dude did in 1996. Like, whoa. It's amazing. It probably didn't even make sense. Some other stuff leaked, of course, but I've had a really hard time finding info about the later leaks. From the looks of it, the 2021 leaks had much less notable content outside of weird names for the Wii. I will now read some of my favorites. Nintendo Earth, Nintendo Everlasting Wave, parentheses, new, Nintendo Every, Nintendo Everyone, Nintendo Freedom, Nintendo Fusion, with a Z because they're epic. Nintendo Game Artist, which makes no fucking sense, like, what? Nintendo Gas Pro. What the fuck's a Gas Pro? Nintendo Go-Go Machine, Nintendo Hair, Nintendo Perfect, Nintendo Park. Though it looks like pork on my script, fuck. Nintendo Rebirth and Nintendo Reborn. New Nintendo GameCube. Also, Mario FPS. Yeah, I think it's best we end things here. So thank you for watching. Check out my Discord and my fucking Twitter. Thank you for like a few people coming in there though. That was great.